Hello there everyone, how you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/entitled parents. That's right everyone, we're no longer focusing on entitled people, we are going after entitled parents. The ones who raise their little crotch goblins into people that no longer interact with them. If you enjoy the stories, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and all that other stuff. Now, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? I am my sister's replacement. I'm the elder of two sisters. My mother had a hard time conceiving, so when I was born, I was everybody's favorite. First kid, blah blah blah. That's until my sister. I took after my father, so I look a lot like my paternal aunt who had beef with my mother. When my sister was born, my mom said she cried, not because of the pain, but because my sister resembled my great maternal grandma. I don't know if that's true, but I've always felt my mom favored my sister. Whenever we'd fought, I'd be the one on the receiving end. Even when my sister hit me first and I retaliated, I'd be the one getting the beating. My mom had a special stick to beat me with whenever I disobeyed her. One time I was so sick of getting beatings on a daily basis, I threw the stick away. I was beaten for that, and the next day she bought another to continue her abuse. She even broke it once while beating me, and when it was my sister's fault, she was let off with just a warning. When asked why you didn't beat her, she'd go, "Oh, you know how fragile your sister is." My absent father was having an affair, and he didn't really care for us three. My mom once hit my nose so hard I had a nosebleed for 10 minutes. All because I couldn't understand a math concept from class 4. I was always pressured to do well academically, which I did, but for my sister it was, "Do your best, sweetie." She was average in studies. My father died during COVID, so I was always told we're financially struggling, but she would always go on trips, parties, even in college. She didn't even let me go to college. She said that course has no scope. So I ended up doing my studies online, which makes getting a job tough because recruiters want somebody who has exposure, while my sister gets to go to college, which has higher fees compared to mine. She went to Canada for higher studies. During the time she was gone, my mother showered me with love and would buy me practically anything. Only time I felt loved and important. Now after 2 years she's back and told us she wants to marry her longtime boyfriend. My mother is spending our father's last savings, which he split between us both. Her share has run out, so she's spending from mine. When I question, she goes, "But you don't want to marry anyways. This is the only wedding we're gonna have, so let's enjoy it." She also gave away all the jewelry to her, even the ones my paternal grandparents kept from me. I was very close to them. By the end of the wedding, I had no assets to my name. I'm so sick of this situation that I'm constantly thinking about committing by speeding my car and ramming it into a wall or something. I've always felt so unwanted and sheltered. I developed self-doubt, which made my friendships difficult. She also decided who I should hang out with. Because of her, so many friends abandoned me, and so many left because I was naive and thought mom knows best. So here I am, with no friends, no career, no life after an argument with my mother who's telling me to leave the house if I don't want to do what she wants. Edit. Talk to a lawyer, like some people suggested, and he said without a will, the widow is the rightful beneficiary of my father's assets. Moreover, all of the bank accounts, including mine, has her number registered. To change it to mine, they'll send notification first and need signature. I talked to my paternal aunt, and she doesn't want to get involved with my mother again. My mother had a huge fight with her post-father's death. Edit 2. Gonna go with a user's suggestion. I had a chat with my mom, and she apologized for not understanding her point. I told her I'll listen and do what she wants. Manipulated her like my sister does for the first time. I'm going to get a job and save up enough to leave. She made excuses for her behavior, of course, and said I was wrong, that she treated both of us equally. I'm gonna bide my time until I'm independent. Thank you so much, everyone. Someone in the comments says, "You're the scapegoat to the golden child. Get a job, save every penny you can, and get out of there as fast as you can. When you get out, I would go no contact with your mother. Cut her out from your life forever. When she complains, tell her that due to her abuse and treating you like crud, you decided it was for the betterment of your mental health. You are better off without her in your life. You might have your sister, depending on how she has treated you, but Mommy Dearest should be out of the picture forever. On to our last story of the day. Entitled father became so upset I wasn't going to give him biological grandchildren that he married a mail-order bride partially in order to claim her grandchildren as his own. I'm going to go off on a limb here and say that entitled parents pressuring their children into giving them grandkids isn't necessarily a novel concept on this sub, but I hope you'll allow me to toss my own 2 cents into the pile. Ever since I was young, my father, who's divorced from my mother, who has 1 child, not with him, has always commented about how he can't wait for me to have grandkids. I am his only child, and none of his siblings have children either. So I'm basically the last in line for his side of the family. I never really thought too much on it, but as I grew into adulthood, my father became much more interested in my relationship status, encouraging me into heterosexual relationships, including setting me up on dates without my permission, and then getting upset whenever I entered into homosexual relationships. I'm bisexual, so everyone knows. Of course, he always threw out the typical biphobic,
"Okay, but once you're done experimenting, you'll settle down and have kids at some point, right?"
and I just kind of brushed it off because it wasn't worth arguing with him over it. That being said, I had long thought about the idea of having biological children when I was younger, whether it would be through natural or artificial means, depending on the sex of who I settled down with, and I sometimes even found myself excited by the idea. Eventually, though, I settled on the idea that I had too many hereditary health issues that I didn't want to pass on to any potential biological children, given that there are also plenty of kids in the foster care who need warm, welcoming homes. I figured I could look to adopt if I ever did end up wanting children of my own, though it is questionable whether I'll ever reach that point or not. My father, obviously, wasn't happy with me coming to that conclusion, and he kept trying to convince me to have kids even though I explicitly told him that I didn't want to do so. Anyways, a few years ago, I had a medically necessary procedure that made it certain that I would never be able to have biological children. I did not tell my father because I was well aware how he would react if he found out I had done such a thing. Whether or not it was medically necessary, he probably does not care. I considered the fact that I had essentially doomed my father's family line to die out with me, but I had never really been someone too focused on passing on my bloodline or whatever. Around the same time as I had my procedure, my father entered into a quote-unquote relationship with a woman from the Philippines that he had been set up with by other Filipino women to the point where we ourselves live. Our father, of course, kept going on and on about his girlfriend's grandkids, and how whenever he went to visit her in the Philippines, said grandkids would call him Grandpa. Long story short on that end, the Filipino woman in question immigrated to the United States to marry and live with my father, though it was more of a bangmate situation than it was even remotely a loving marriage. The woman herself was incredibly sweet, however, and I loved calling her my stepmom and spending time with her. Just recently, a couple of years after she married my father, she ended up divorcing him and returning to the Philippines. As you might imagine, my father is not a good person, and I absolutely cannot blame anyone for wanting to get away from him. My father, of course, was very torn up about the whole situation, though he obviously never accepted any responsibility for the matter, always blaming my stepmom, and came over to the house where me, my biological mother, and my stepfather live, in order to complain about everything. During one of his rantings and ravings, he said the following,
"I mean, part of the reason that I married her was so I could at least say I kinda have grandkids, since you haven't given me any yet. I'm getting older and I don't want to die without grandkids."
To say that me, my mom, and my stepdad were shocked that he actually came out and said would would be an understatement. Feeling extremely petty in the moment, I told him about the procedure, and about how I would never be giving him any grandkids, and how he would inevitably be dying without them. The whole thing blew up into a massive argument, and as you can imagine, that ultimately ended with my father getting kicked out of the house by my stepdad. Things have cooled down since then, but my father hasn't brought up the grandkids thing again with me directly, though he loves to needle me directly about it. So yeah, there you go. I didn't want to have biological children, so my father married a mail-order bride, partially in order to have grandkids that he could claim as his own. And then, once divorced, blamed me for the fact that he was going to die without any grandkids. Honestly, if he hadn't been such a terrible husband to all of his wives, maybe he could have had another kid to give him grandchildren, but live and let live, I guess. Why are you on speaking terms with this person? Someone in the comments asks. And OP responds, because he unfortunately lives only a 5-minute walk away from where I do, and nothing that he has done to me or my mother, recently anyways, qualifies for a restraining order under California law. I'm sorry to hear you're going through that, OP. Anyway, on to the next story. Entitled Mother Assaults Me and Gets Fired. So this happened just over a decade ago. I was around 17 working in the main mall in my town at a well-known athletics shoe store, where everyone dressed like referees. It was time for my lunch break, so after scarfing down some greasy food court meal, I decided to head out back to the employee smoking area of the mall. A couple of minutes after I sat down, a woman around 30, her mother around 50, and her child in the stroller around 2, came out and sat beside me with their lunch. I looked at them strangely, thinking, of all the places around the mall, why here? With a child. Whatever, I guess. Not long after, one of them started yelling at me that I need to leave the area because I'm smoking beside their child while they're eating. I replied, this is the only area of the mall property I'm allowed to smoke. They replied, they put it there because you can't be smoking beside my child. I replied, lady, this is the only area of the mall I can smoke during my break. I'm not smoking inside the food court. This isn't my problem. Maybe not the best thing to say, but whatever. I was young, and honestly, they deserved it. Keep in mind, this entire time I am in uniform. Before I knew it, the old woman was literally flying at me. She started trying to punch me in the head, so I grabbed her arms and held her down. And that's when the younger woman ran up and started wailing on my head. I just sat there, taking it. She was larger, but could not throw a punch to save her life. For a few minutes. Then security came running out and separated us. No joke, these women started yelling and screaming about how I just attacked them and was blowing smoke in their baby's face. I told them that was BS, and they had no idea who to believe, but were definitely more on their side. Thank God this older guy who worked at a mobile phone store around me saw everything go down, and everyone was just sitting there baffled, and obviously I lit up another cigarette. The man came up to me and let me know he saw everything, and that he would be going to security right now to stand up for me. He said how insane it was, and offered some sympathy. Then I went back to work, my face very red from being hit, but thankfully, no bruises. My boss asked me what happened, and I told her the story. She didn't even believe me. The cops ended up coming in an hour later. Apparently the woman was trying to press charges against me. I was stunned. I told them who to talk to and to watch the tapes. Thankfully, they did. Just like before the end of the day, the manager of the store comes up to my store, letting me know that the woman was her employee. She got fired for assaulting someone on shift. The mall also banned her for the same reason. The cops came into my store asking if I wanted to press charges. I told them she probably learned her lesson, but I'd let them know if I saw her again. Thankfully, I never did. Someone in the comments says, I worked at the mall a collective 15 years. When it was acceptable back in '97 when you could chase down shoplifters, I had my fair share of injuries too. I never lost the merchandise and got many people banned. And if I'm being honest, I don't agree with that commenter. You don't put your neck on the line out for companies. You just don't do that. Anyway, that's the end of today's video. I hope you will enjoy it. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and all that other wonderful stuff. I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.